Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Unionism. Whoa. All right. Welcome to our World Today, the Unionist Perspective, a discussion where we talk about the news in a different way and try to understand the truth behind each of the topics that we discuss. Today, we have a program around talking about women's health and freedom. We shared the articles that we had researched this week, and we realized that there was a common thread through most of them, and it was about understanding the place of women into society. And what I mean by society is like different societies, so around the world, and also in the health system of these countries. What I mean by that is that we'll start talking about basically how testing in medicine and in the medical field has been done through men most of the time and not women. And so sometimes we don't necessarily understand how it plays out for women. And we'll talk about how this affects any contraceptive and reproductive health measures, including IUDs. And then we'll move on to talking about how young girls are kind of affected by the anti-aging products that they see on social media and the reason why it's impactful for their skin health. And we'll finish with, if we have time, talking about the Taliban and how they've been erasing Afghan women from pretty much like all middle strats levels of society. So if you would like to join us, you can chat with us in the chat of our Facebook group or comment on our YouTube video when you see the replay of this. And let's start. So basically what I want to start with is an article that Nadia researched a few weeks ago, and I think that's the right introduction for us today. And it talks about how in the medical field, we don't know how drugs and medical devices affect women so much because of the difficulty of testing on different genders and the choice that was made to test mostly on men. So, Nadia, would you like to summarize your research that you've been doing on that, kind of to start the discussion today?
Yes, the research I've been doing shows that we have made significant strides in women's research. However, it's still not enough because in the US, the women's population is 51%. And right now, we're still researching at 40% of women with men. So it's not the equivalent of what our population is. And the research world still looks at women as special character, as in not the norm. A male's body is considered the normal body, but a woman's body, given the reproductive cycle and all the hormones that change throughout the life, is not considered normal, and it's too much of an expense, as what people have called it, to research on women. Even female mices were too expensive to research on because there were too many factors to cater to. So, what the researchers have found is that if they establish women to be in the research centers, if they allow for easy access to women of color, and if they consider transportation and other social economical variances when it comes to women in research, they find that more women are likely to come and give their input when it comes to the medication they tried and trusting the medical department, as well as being participants in research. So this also was the case for mother's mortality too. Both these cases have aligned to show that if you consider social economics and the fact that women of color come from various genes and adaptations of their body because of their socioeconomical and the way they grew up, their lifestyle, then you are more likely to get closer to how a woman would adapt to medication and adapt to medical procedures. And there's also another thing to consider is that women of color, such as Black Americans, Native Americans, those are the two primary groups that have the most death when it comes to um, giving birth. And that has significant impact on doctors not believing when they're in pain. And that same distrust that happens with the doctors has been shown in research. So that's pretty much it. Like considering the factors of lifestyle, the factors of culture, as well as social economic background can allow women to feel safer and there be a growth in equal representation in research, as well as more accommodations to prevent any type of mortality, especially giving birth.
Mhm. Thank you for a summary. Yeah, I think it's really interesting how we're still discussing this today, especially because I think we already discussed it 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Grenville can attest to that probably, and he is nodding. So yes, we did. Especially I think for Black women and Black people and how it was not medicine was not really adapted to us and how um, our genes work or our specific like genomes worked. But I think there's something very deep to heal about women there. And I think most of the media that we have consumed about that is rightfully upset about how 50% of the population was not studied. But the pattern that we are seeing in medicine is that it is very much difficult to try and test on everybody in order to find a solution that works for everyone. The problem with that is that we started with that a century ago, maybe if we're generous, 50 years ago. But we should have been pretty soon afterwards on the train of trying to adapt it to the other gender of the population and to different ethnic groups, which we have not done. And I know like it's pricey, it's difficult, yes, but if it's not done, like when is it going to be done? Because research is not going to get any cheaper. Um, and it has to be done at some point. And we're here in 2024, and it is not done. We're very in a very small percentage, but it's just starting to emerge. Which is difficult because like nothing is adapted to it being done on like different groups, except different groups of men and mostly of majority of the people in the country. And there is something about what you said at the beginning, to the effects of like most of the health measure, the energy measure, and I would even go as far as saying like the system of how we work, the preconization of how much sleep we need, and how to eat is mainly based on men, and then people are trying to adapt it to women instead of researching at the core for women as well, which means that, for example, a man would have a biological cycle of 24 hours, where a woman would have a biological cycle of 28 days. And even that can vary depending on the woman. And that's definitely a very different way of relating to life, of energy levels, and of how we can react emotionally and physically to remedies and to medical devices. So I think we're just scratching the surface of that. I think the goal is not to just be negative about that, but I think it's pretty important that we really start talking about that, and not just on social media to say like, hey, like you have a 28-day cycle, like figure it out yourself, your energy levels. No, the medical field needs to catch up to it as well. And I have many things to say about it more, but I would love to hear what Grendel or Isaiah or Sage have to say as well about this phenomenon.
So, so like as Nadia was sharing, like my first thought was, are you shitting me? Like honestly, are you shitting me? But then when I feel into it, like I almost feel the core energy of it is that women have generally throughout history been very self-sacrificing. And so reality has adapted to how women showed up in society, circumstantially or not. Women tend to put other people first, tend to care about other people first. There is the energy of diminishing yourself to take care of the family or the community or the house, or the animals or whatever. So that it almost feels like a form of self-imposed slavery that has ingrained a vibration of a second-class citizen. And so if that vibration is there, why would society at large not meet that vibration?
Yeah.
And I think and I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow. And it's not a pretty message to put on the table. But the fact of the matter is, if we are looking at healing, we kind of need to go to the core of it and say, how do I shift that inside myself so that I don't have to fight with my reality to actually present me with a better reality? And it literally comes back to the teachings of union. As you shift and heal internally, your reality shifts. And yes, we can be as pissed off as we want to be. And I can tell you very comfortably, it makes no logical sense if you think about the fact that scientifically research needs to be robust. And you need to introduce as many possible variables into something to actually test the hypothesis. So we also see that scientifically, what we always thought was great is limited in and of itself. And that's because it was constricted to a segment of the population that probably don't have the many nuances that the feminine body carries. And arguing that it's too expensive to consider all those variances to actually create an effective medical field is actually the most rudimentary basic argument that is illogical from a scientific perspective. So, it's kind of like this counterproductive thought process that goes, well, science, are you stupid?
An oxymoron. No, really, I think you are right in certain aspects of it. I think, my parents are health professionals, doctors, so studied health at length, and we all know that science is progressive, so you have to continue to learn to evolve. And there was a need for this medication to go out as soon as possible. So there is a need for it to be studied in a simple way that would be put on the market as well. This excuse made sense, but it should have made sense for only like maybe 2 years of existence of a medications, not decades, not a century. And I think people were too complacent in in um in really just anything in that sense, or maybe they forgot. And I think it's telling that women's health came as an afterthought of this, or it also came as we were saying as some sort of like self-sacrificing pattern that was surfacing in the innovations in terms of science, because people didn't think that it would act differently on a woman's body as others. But also, like, they would argue very ridiculously, of course, but they would argue that why study the reproductive system at length if women have been birthing babies since the beginning of time, and we know how it works. So maybe there's also a little bit of like, the self-sacrificing pattern is what was the side of women that needs to be healed, obviously. And the other side was kind of like an arrogance about like, we know how this works, so why search further? But like the goal of science is just to say, like, I agree to know that I don't know anything. Like Socrates, like this is philosophical. Like this is the first thing that you learn. But yeah, you kind of have to put your ego and also like I guess your um financial gain agenda on the side to really truthfully want for this to progress. And people are doing it, right? But I think it wouldn't be right if we weren't like calling out all the different sides of this. And yeah, that's what we're doing right now. And Sage wanted to say something, if I'm not mistaken. Did you want to say something?
Yes, but I forgot one thing that I was gonna say. But yeah, I guess it's just kind of like showing how you really we all have to value ourselves, and it like the progression of time isn't like it's not like a real thing, and like time alone doesn't like change anything, or heal wounds, as people say. Like you've got to, well, healing the wounds is what heals the wounds, and valuing yourself is a big part of that, I think, for this particular problem. And yeah, I don't know. That's all I was thinking. Oh my gosh, there's one more thing that was coming up about it, but I don't remember right now. Oh, yeah, about like about the whole thing about like women have been giving birth for like forever, and then so nothing's wrong and we don't need to fix what ain't broken. But I think that same thinking would kind of like lead to the conclusion that all of Western medicine, at least, is useless, because it's kind of like saying, well, like human beings have been physiologically functioning since human beings have been around. So we don't need to study any of it. Like there's no need for scientific study of it, which is kind of ridiculous.
No, it's working. It's fine.
Yeah, and and even other medical traditions required, learning as well, and it requires learning and attunement to the human body and to truth. It's just like there are different approaches to it, but Western medicine is like one of them. And I don't know. I think it's fine, and it's like as long as human beings have some sort of like misalignment with are experiencing some sort of misalignment with love, right? Or truth, or, well-being, there's going to need to be some sort of knowledge about how to realign there. And Western medicine has ways, and every other form of medicine has its ways to do that. And in this case, we need to study things scientifically in order to find conclusions about it. So, I mean, obviously, that's like the truth of it, but like, then we get to all these little barriers of like, oh, there are cost issues or like whatever else comes up to like adequately studying everybody, all segments of the population. But I think that it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of a weird problem to have. It's kind of like a strange problem to persist so long, but it's here, so we have to deal with it.
You
Yeah.
touched on the core blocks of it, I think. There was something about valuing yourself, and I think in order for people to understand, it's good to look at history, just like the article that Nadia shared was looking at history. So you said that time is kind of an illusion, like it's not going to heal the wounds itself. Like you actually need to go have a look at them, feel them, and heal them. And to that extent, there is a whole thing about like the Freudian era, and even before, where people would just see women as like hysterical and having hysterical crisis beyond what could be healable or solvable. And that was the extent of medical research on it. So things that were developed basically were kind of things of like, for the most gruesome of them, torture around women and invalidation of their feelings, their emotion, their pain levels, and also very healthy sexual energy, if like we have to be honest. And we as women, we have to heal that. And we have to go through that. And like none of the excuses of this particular idea, particular ordeal makes sense. Like none of them are actually logical, but they stem out from this ego thinking that women don't need anything more than treating their hysteria. And so that it also explains why people would just like shun them out if they say like, I have this problem, like I'm not feeling good, I'm feeling a pain level that is not normal. And that's why we are just now understanding that women have been silenced and constrained in that way. And that's why so many women are still dying at childbirth. So yeah, there's nothing rational about it. If you try to really look at that, it's just our ego talking and really impeding our decision to actually do good and love humanity as a whole, not just women, humanity as a whole, through that.
So you touched on something quite interesting and probably very important that we might want to just explore. So we're sitting in 2024 with the extreme of what was the suppression of the divine feminine, right? Because technically, women's power was suppressed from the pagan era. and suppressed in that. I mean, just to use very common examples like the Salem witch trials, the burning of witches at the stake, the misunderstanding of the female body and what the menstrual cycle represented, and people assuming that that was dirty and those kind of things, the removal of the divine feminine out of history, so that actually the number 13 became a bad thing as opposed to a good thing, because 13 is the cycles of the moon, 13 is the cycle, the woman's normal natural menstrual cycle. So all of those things were vilified to the point that the suppression had the very opposite effect of now women's health having been affected adversely from the point of where they had quite a bit of natural power in society as the nurturer. And so that energy of nurturing was actually used against women. And I think part of what it reminds me of was when that Roe decision was overturned in the Supreme Court, and Shaleia shared that it feels like the feminine is under attack. And it just feels like the attack may have been subdued in its ferocity, but it never really changed. And that is the problem. The problem is that that a strong sex became seen as the weaker, fairer sex. And automatically that changes the dynamic and the attention given to understanding health issues and to misconstruing the need for medical assistance as hysteria and all of those other weird and wonderful things that get thrown about. And the fact of the matter is, there can be no balance in society if there is no real balance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And so I think our core healing as humanity is about bringing that balance back into our lives.
So anything you wanted to say, Sage?
Oh, yeah, I think it just goes back to it goes back to healing guilt or shame about being a woman, and that kind of spills over into women's health and women's bodies, kind of like the shame or the judgments about it, the guilt about it,
Mhm.
it's widespread. It's so weird that it would be a widespread thing for people to feel some sort of shame or judgment, for example, about having periods. It's just kind of yeah, why is that, and there are different cultural approaches to it and everything like that, depending on what culture you're talking about. But yeah, it's so widespread. I think it has to do with the well, at least in Christian society, or what's the word you're looking for? Abrahamic religions. It has a lot to do with the misinterpretation, right, of the kind of Genesis story, and Eve being the reason for humanity's fall from heaven or whatever, which is not true, because it always takes two to tango, and we know from this teaching that the masculine and the feminine are one. It's so that whole concept of Adam and Eve is that they're one being, with two different channels. So
yeah. Funny you say that, because I just quickly a video about a Christian studying the actual text with the right translation, not the Western translation of old Aramean or Hebrew, and actually Eve is not created as the woman, the subdued, the servant to Adam. She's creating as the strong partner, is what would actually be allegedly like the right translation. So there is a whole thing to heal in humanity at the very core, like 10,000 years ago, even more, about how we see women, how we see ourselves truly, because like what you do to your brother or sister is what you do to yourself, and like impeding the functioning good functioning of society by impeding half of it. And there's also something else that I wanted to say about that. Oh yes, IUDs. IUDs are linked to that. These two are correlated tonight. And you know, the article that I said that I read is like pretty polite about it, but it says federal officials affirmed this month that the pain people might feel when getting an IUD can be more than doctors' promises of just a pinch. And people are like, no shit. It's like you go to the dentist and for just about anything you get a local anesthesia. So you mean to say that it was not painful to be entering the body of somebody to put a strange body in it? That doesn't make sense. And as a Black woman, sadly, like, you know, women get not listened to in many countries, in many fields of medicine when they go to get a consult, but gynecologist, my God, like people telling you that there's nothing wrong with you, and it's like, well, okay, I believe you, but why am I in pain? It's kind of traumatic, and people unknowingly gaslight you by not doing the right research of actually searching for the cause of pain and actually saying, oh, you're fine, like you'll be fine, go back home. And there's also something about like, again, like it's so anchored into society that we have to add a teacher, a geopolitics teacher, well-meaning, taught me a lot of things that I knew, but on women, he said one day that several times that Inuit women, they went into the ice desert, the glacier, with all of us to give birth. So Western medicine is really what has conceptualized pain and needing to be in a hospital with support around birth. And we were as impressionable kids at this time. I was like maybe 16, 17, 18 at most. I was like, oh my God, is it true? Like, have we conceptualized pain? And now we're discovering, like, no, no. And who knows if the Inuit woman wasn't yelling out for her life where nobody could explain it. And men tried to nobilize her birth, even though she was probably suffering alone. Like, we need to return this conversation. And, you know, so many people, well-meaning doctors, I know, I've been around them. And I think it's just like the conceptualization of separation, really, truly, and being avoidant to people's suffering in certain areas that makes it so not okay. And we need to do better at that, and that's okay. Like we're learning, we're progressing. We didn't do it before. No worries, like the past is in the past. We need to focus on now, but we need to start. We need to be vocal about like peacefully having conversations there and actually taking into account the voices of women, which thankfully is starting to begin. So Nadia, do you want to say something as well?
Yeah, I'm really glad with all of the points that you brought and that Granville and Sage has brought. Because when we look at the deep-rooted guilt and that feeling of like we're second class, all I can think about is bringing compassion into this for both divine feminines and divine masculines. Because if you think about it, for the majority of a woman's life, we don't really go to doctors and hospitals until it's time for our periods and then it's time to give birth. So when we have that actual, like every week, every month appointment to the doctors and then going in to give birth, some of the procedures that are done for birthing is just horrendous, which causes PTSD to women and not trust the medical field or doctors because of what they experienced during childbirth. And it has to completely fundamentally change for a lot of doctors and medical education backgrounds. Because if we don't give birth with compassion, bringing in a miracle in life, both from a divine feminine perspective of like, that's my baby, and you better handle that with complete care and compassion. And the same side with, this is a life that I'm bringing in, and I will care for it with complete care and compassion. Then it's not of the utmost divine standard. This is not a procedure of removing your appendix or like, getting any type of other stuff of surgery. This is like the highlight of someone giving birth and someone receiving that as life. And so this fundamentally has to change. And I feel that given our history of women being second-class citizens, it's a matter of both the genders questioning, like, where is the integrity and where is the control coming from? Because one gender finds that if they do not control the other gender, their power is going away. And then the other gender is very complacent to giving that power away because they're deep-rooted and still that that's what they have to do. That is what their role is. So it's just a lot of compassion as this uproots, this misalignment uproots.
Very wise words. Thank you for sharing that. Sage, any closing words? You wanted to say something? No? All right, good. So I feel like we may want to move forward with the next topic. Obviously, all of our topics are linked tonight, but this one is a little bit different, and it is about how young girls, very young girls actually, not even 10, are being influenced to buy anti-aging cream, and how it is not dermatologically tested on most women actually. There are a lot of allergenic components to them, and how it is not safe for young conception. And Isaiah and Sage were the people to research this topic this week. So would you like to give us a rundown of the article?
Yeah, this one definitely somewhat caught me by surprise, but at the same time, it didn't. I think for the same reasons we were talking about with the previous topic, because of the energies of the divine feminine not feeling valuable. Okay, so the whole anti-aging drive, basically, I think it goes astray when people feel like their value gets diminished if they start experiencing, aging, like the physical process of the body, like aging, basically. So that's always been the issue, right? Is like valuing yourself, knowing your worth. It doesn't depend on that, People don't you don't really fall in love with a body, you fall in love with a person, right? That's what real love is. And I think people are concerned about that too. But it's a real fascinating question. How are like young girls like in this article they mentioned the lowest age they mentioned was like 8 years old of when, but they said most often like 10 or 11 is what they're seeing, is when these young girls are starting to like become concerned nowadays about this anti-aging, um the need to like have anti-aging products on your skin. And I'm just like, that is crazy. That would be such an interesting question to delve into. How did this come about? Because like I thought I had never heard of that when even when I was growing up, uh of like yeah, as a kid you aren't concerned about that, except maybe as a teenager you might joke about that, maybe like, oh, I'm getting old, but it's not a serious thing where you're like using all of your allowance money or whatever money you can scrape together to go to Sephora and buy these adult strength
Yeah.
anti-aging.
I feel like it's
Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely like innocence needs to be protected. Like I feel like there needs to be something that stops this type of consumption. Like kids this young should not have unlimited access to like internet and other things like that that would promote this type of feeling and thinking. But of course, like nowadays, yeah, kids that age, like if you're not being monitored and you're just like on your iPad or phone or something, yeah, you can like look at whatever you want. And it's especially, yeah, I could, yeah, so it would promote that. But I feel like the core of it is um beauty, like what true beauty is, and society um, puts it on the outside. But what it really is, it's the love you have for yourself within and your authenticity, and that's what needs to be healed. That's like that's the
Mhm.
thing, right? Because if um, young girls grew up like feeling that way and knowing that like your beauty is within, it is not what your what's being shown to you um through magazines or whatever the heck you're looking at on TikTok and stuff. And it's actually like it's not that um that's what would heal this, because then um you wouldn't be looking to the outside for that, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the way you went directly to like the core healing and beauty and accepting of your value and giving love to yourself inside. I also would like to maybe bring up the insights of the external factors. And I mean, like, buckle up because like it's a lot. There is first of all, market of beauty has democratized maybe rather like a banal idea of like anti-aging cosmetics and mask into our daily lives. Like 10 years ago, I used to see like my roommate of 27 who was Chinese, and it was only like East Asian women that were like crazy about this like 10 anti-aging cream that they would apply before bed. And certain cultures had always had that for like decades. But then like right now we see all these things with like collagen and this crazy mask that you need to put like 6 hours on your face or um, just to have them. And I had a really humbling lesson about cosmetics because I was like, yeah, I need some sort of cosmetics. Like I really explored like what really worked for me in the past few months. And first of all, I bought some of the cosmetics that people bought the most. And first of all, I ended up not liking it. It didn't feel like me, which is fine. Like not everyone is going to have the same consumption of cosmetic. I do consume cosmetics, but not the ones that are the most commercialized. And also, I had an allergic reaction because I have very sensitive skin. And my dad, bless his soul, allergologist, dermatologist, whatever you would like, said like there is at least 30 products in here that are the cause of like allergic reactions. Stop using them. And I was like, oh no, my $60 cream. So very bad. Even for adults, the actual consumption of cosmetics is actually very dangerous, but we don't know about it yet. We'll probably know about it in maybe 10 years when people will realize how much of negative impact it may have had on their skin. Not all of their skin, because we're all different, but still. So for our kids, I did talk about them once in passing through one of our discussion. This is a phenomenon I think that is the continuation of iPad kids. It's like pretty much they would do anything to buy like maybe $900 of cosmetics at Sephora every month as kids. Not even exaggerating for some of them. 9 years old, and they would like be pretty much bent on buying them, and the adult, like the parent, would have to negotiate with them, to like reduce it down to like 400 euros. And Sephora employees say that this is a daily occurrence, several times a day. So we have a systemic problem, use of social media before 13, and buying of cosmetics, pretty much problems. But we would be lying to say that the problem was only the influencers that were doing that. And if you're reading the media through which we've done research, it's pretty easy to blame the influencers. I would have done it the same if we did not have this discussion. But there's something, and you see it in the very thin, small lines of the article, about like the parents. Do you read the things that your kids are buying? This is not Toys R Us. It is like, it's cosmetic. People know so little about dermatology that it is quite tough as an adult to see what works on your skin. So for your kids, I don't know, like Sephora is not like we agree to say that this is safe for kids. Like, no, there is an age to which you need to start using them, and our skin is still developing. That's really bad, because like just as medicine, it's geared for adult skin, tougher skin, not thin skin, thin kid skin. And I have something to say about that. And maybe that's why I say that this is a continuation of iPad kids, because like, for whom are you doing kids if you're not taking care of them, please? Doing kids is expensive, and it's a responsibility, expensive emotionally, physically. Like, we need to put some responsibility in there. And I feel like Grendel was burning to say something, but Nadja first, sorry.
Feel you brought up a perfect point that Isaiah also touched on, is the parents. And let me start off by saying that, yeah, social media does play an influence, because it almost becomes like a fad. Like, how many products can I buy? It feels so good to rub on my skin. Like all these routines make you feel like fabulous, and that's how social media says it. But as Isaiah had described, the way that true beauty is really how a father would be describing to their daughter. And not every daughter has that kind of support and that kind of awareness. So not only is this social media pushing you to look outside of yourself to feel that attention and feel that love that you want, it's also the responsibility of your parents, and notably your father, to give you that type of support and awareness that, like, this is what true beauty is. And this is where true attention comes from within. And with that foundation, young women wouldn't feel the need to go out and, at such a young age for that. They would feel in themselves like, this is getting too many products and like my dress is overflowing, they would feel within themselves a shift.
So, guys, I'm going to argue with you on this one. I'm absolutely going to argue with you on this one because for time immemorial, what do you see? My mom's nails are painted, my mom's lips are painted, my mom's eyes are painted. And so, what do I want? We go into even a kid's store and we find play nail polish and we find play facial products and we get dolls and we want to make them up. So, as much as it's an endemic problem around social media, it's a socialization problem as well. Because it's fun to see mommy sitting in front of a mirror, doing her eyes, doing her eyeliner, doing her lipstick, doing her hair. We are creating inadvertent monsters. The problem is those monsters are turning themselves into monsters by using these kind of products. So yes, the standard of beauty is very much publicized and redefined through every new fashion campaign, through every new cosmetic campaign, through just about everything. There's always something new. And how many male children do you think are the kids buying these products?
Sure.
And so my question here is, we need to, again, as females, recognize what our true value and our true beauty is so that it filters into our lives, into our realities, into the lives of our daughters. Unfortunately, for as long as we continue to be our own worst enemy, nobody's going to rescue us.
It's probably an energetical problem more than an actual like nail polish commercialized problem. I feel like if people really understood like the true value of beauty inside, it wouldn't be as commercialized. Though it is very fun to put mom's makeup and nail polish, like I agree with that. But like just like anything, like having it in excess is what's wrong with it. Nobody should have a morning routine as a kid, even through consuming social media, of having anti-aging cream every morning. The parent needs to really be careful there. And I think there also is something to say about like accepting to age really beautifully. Like I'm sorry, like I love my lines. Like I don't want to have a face that looks Photoshop. I tried, but it doesn't feel like me. Um, it looks beautiful on other people, but like I want to have minimal makeup, and that's okay. And I like that for myself. So very simple.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I love what you said because, it's always been a standing joke amongst my friends and I. If you can take off your face and hang it on a wall at night, you're doing too much.
Oh no. For everyone's watching, this is not a rundown of makeup and cosmetics. It's just like adjusting the energy, I feel. And I love cosmetics. Like, to be honest, I love nail polish. But what I mean to say is that if I have parents that make me feel like mother, father, whoever, like no, there is an expression of divine parents through whomever that comes from, aunt, cousin, we don't care, but there is someone out there that must teach you how it's done. And I have the grateful, I'm grateful for my parents for obviously like it is their purpose being health professionals, but it's like really feel good about yourself, take care of your hygiene, make sure that your products have this and this and this and that. Use natural products when you can, not medicine. or chemical products. They were really good at doing that. It's a cultural thing. And then on that foundation, have fun with cosmetics. But cosmetics is not like the obligatory thing. It's just something like that needs to be subsidiary, like that can be replaced. Like it's not a need. Feel good first inside. They didn't like have this lesson like completely down, but I think they had a little bit of that lesson, at least for me to grow up as I am and really feel good about like not putting on a face of makeup every day. And that's okay, that's fine, that's me, you know? So yes, it's fun to discover your femininity through mom. It's fun to put on nail polish and eyeshadow. I love that. I loved that when I was a kid. But it's also fun to discover what is truly a joy for you and without even having like the teachings of on loving yourself emotionally. If your kid is like spending $900 at Sephora at 9 years old, not going on a bike, not exploring what feels good in terms of music and instruments and sports, having relationships through friends, through something other than TikTok and cosmetics, there is a problem. It's all in the balance. So that's all I have to say. We have to be balanced. Like there's no extreme. Like cosmetic is not the devil. Influencers are not the devil. They're fun, but like you also need to be responsible as a parent. Is what I mean to say. Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
So I feel like you're talking to what needs to be redefined as the standard of self-care, right? Because overextending yourself in any way, shape, or form is never a healthy choice. And I think that's the point at which the healing needs to happen, is that what is a healthy choice under all circumstances? And sometimes that healthy choice is about a boundary, and sometimes that healthy choice is about not choosing to follow a fad, and sometimes that healthy choice is about honoring your individuality. And so, yes, I'm all for self-expression through whatever form you choose, if it's healthy. But again, it comes back to balance and it comes back to sensibility. And it's very easy, again, to point fingers in all sorts of directions. But the core of it is there's a wound at the core that actually needs to be healed. And that's why these things are playing out in the way that they're playing out. They're highlighting the fact that healing is required in this space.
Yeah. And also part of this too is like helping kids stay in the realm of childhood and not try to, advance into like adult things that aren't, it's not like time for them to do that basically, because that's the whole problem, was that using these adult strength, I guess, or skincare products meant for adult skin, it was like it's literally damaging to their skin, because like the biology of the skin is different, if especially if you're like only like 8 years old or something, or 10 or whatever, right? So that was the issue. And it could cause like apparently what would be fine on adult skin could even cause like a chemical burn on a child's skin, or just like a rash or something, or just like really irritate it. But that, yeah, I did not know that, but yeah, it kind of makes sense. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel a regulation when it comes to these products. Like it needs to be a label, just like Tylenol or something, that 8-year-olds cannot get in touch with these. They cannot buy these. It's like on society as well to not oversell this. Like cosmetic industry loves to everyone loves to profit, but They really love to profit, and it's on them to also regulate this.
Yeah, I agree with this. Yeah. Feels like a good stopping point for tonight. We went through a lot. Thank you so much to my teammates for being here, having this conversation. It was really important, I feel. Very healing for us as well. And thank you to everyone who has watched us from the Facebook group live. And thank you to everyone who is watching us from YouTube on the replay. If you enjoy this discussion, please give it a like. Comments, we'd love to see what you have to say about this. And share with other people so that we can continue to do that. I wish you a very good day or night, wherever you are, and see you next week. Bye-bye.